10,000 angry kids, whoever they are, they scared the shit out of some people those days. They scared the shit out of the powers that be. And that's why this is being investigated. That's why I'm under indictment. Between the days of December 6th and December 10th, 10,000 angry people proved to the government that their regulations, their ideas, their view of PayPal, their view of WikiLeaks, their view of the Afghan war and Egypt and Tunisia and Libya, it didn't fucking matter. Their opinion no longer mattered because someone was out on the internet kicking ass.
The computer hacker group Anonymous is claiming tonight that it took down the website of the Federal Appeals Court in San Francisco this afternoon.
They took down Senate.gov servers, they've taken down HB Gary. Sony's claiming they did $150 million worth of damage.
So many confidential files that tonight, because of these hackers, can be in the hands of anyone.
Visa, MasterCard, the PayPal situation.
The criminals who hacked into Sarah Palin's private email.
The Church of Scientology says Anonymous is a cyber terrorist group of religious bigots.
Anonymous and this other group called LulzSec. They seem to be wanting to prove a point.
Anonymous kind of was like the big, strong, buff kid who had low self-esteem. And then all of a sudden punched somebody in the face and was like, holy shit, I'm really strong. You are going to violate the freedoms of the internet, you certainly better watch the fuck out.
Individual, young, nameless, faceless folks are having geopolitical impact. I mean, it's both exhilarating to realize that and terrifying to realize that. It kind of depends on how that power is wielded.
We stand for freedom. We stand for freedom of speech, the power of the people, the ability for them to protest against the government, to right wrongs, no censorship, especially online, but also in real life.
We have members throughout society and all stratas of it worldwide. Yet we have no leadership.
It's one voice. It's not individual voices. That's why we don't show our faces. That's why we don't give our names. We're speaking as one, and it's a collective. Good timing.
I would love to live in a country where the government fears its citizens and not the other way around. But right now, plenty of anonymous actors are in hiding because of fear of reprisals by the government.
Life. Anonymous grew out of what's known as 4chan. And essentially this is just a website where people can upload images and you don't actually give your name. It's just sort of anonymous.
When you look at 4chan, you're often surprised because it looks like a site from like 1995 or something. The idea is very simple. You post a comment and you post a picture. And you can post under your name or anonymously. And it's separated into boards about particular topics. So there's a topic on anime, there's a topic on weaponry.
There's like a 4chan board for origami, and you just upload interesting pictures of origami. And then there was a group called the B board, which essentially was for like anything goes.
The first time anybody goes on B, it's kind of an instant revulsion. Because there's never a time that you go on there where you don't see something horrible. That instantly puts off a lot of people.
The idea is post something that can never be unseen. Half of the posts on B are there specifically to make people not want to come back to B.
Have you ever read Lord of the Flies? 4chan, and especially B, is Lord of the Flies. Except some of them aren't 16 anymore, they're just allowed to act 16.
It's what you get when people are allowed to express themselves with absolutely no restrictions whatsoever. It's the kind of sum of human imagination. People can get together and think together without any limits or parameters.
It's the most vile, disgusting, and funny thing on the internet.
4chan was founded by Chris Moot pool when he was very young, maybe 15. In the early 2000s, he started 4chan because he was a big fan of Japanese animation.
And he runs the most disgusting website in the world.
What I think is really intriguing about a community like 4chan is just that it's this open place. As I said, it's raw, it's unfiltered, and sites like it are kind of going the way of the dinosaur right now. They're endangered because we're moving towards social networking, we're moving towards persistent identity, we're moving towards a lack of privacy, really.
The B board, that's the exact opposite of Facebook. Facebook, like, you're supposed to be like who you are, and there's sort of one model, which is that like you're friends with people, right? In 4chan, you're totally anonymous nobody. And anonymous speech is, a lot of it's ugly, but not all of it is, right? It is actually sort of a place where people can be honest.
One of the important things about 4chan is to have a thread that really explodes and lasts for a long time. If it doesn't, then it disappears. It's a site that's not archived. So it creates conditions for anything that grabs attention at some level. And so humor and grotesqueness as a result are quite good for that.
I'd rather just be referred to as anonymous, I guess, in any interviews, because I have some docs out on me. 4chan's just where I went to. I grew up on it, and I lived there. That's just what I did for fun. It takes a thick skin to enjoy it. But, as long as you're not offended, you'll occasionally come into something really cool or really creative on 4chan. I think the most interesting thing about it is how you can watch memes evolve. You'll see something posted one day, and then a week later, it's got 50,000 derivatives of it. A meme is basically just an idea. It's kind of like a gene, but in the realm of the idea.
A lot of the great internet memes that we all know and love, lolcats, right? Little cats doing funny things, and then they have, Ike and has cheeseburger, right? All that stuff seems to start in this like petri dish that is 4chan B-board.
Say it publicly and you're insane. Chocolate rain.
Name any meme from the last about 6 years, and I'll bet you either in its first posting ever was on 4chan, or at least one of its earliest revisions that became what it was on 4chan.
I can see the food situation is so we'll be on our way.
It's basically the best breeding ground for internet culture, and as far as I'm concerned.
With your neighborhood insurance rates, chocolate rain.
4chan is also very known for acts of trolling.
Trolling is a fucking art. Trolling is getting the person you're talking to get as pissed off as they possibly can, and for no reason except for your own enjoyment. Maybe you're trying to illustrate a point, but it's mostly for your own enjoyment.
For them, it's funny that like people think the internet is serious business. And if people think the internet is serious business, it's a troll's job to make their life terrible.
The idea of anonymous came initially as a joke. I mean, somebody suggested that what if the whole site, what if 4chan, what if B was just one person? And what if that's just one guy called Anonymous sitting somewhere, and you're just reading all these posts by one guy? And it kind of looks like that from the outsider's perspective. I mean, there's no way to tell the difference. It might as well be one guy.
Fox News did a very famous segment about it.
They call themselves anonymous. They are hackers on steroids, treating the web like a real-life video game, sacking websites, invading MySpace accounts, disrupting innocent people's lives. And if you fight back, watch out.
Destroy. Die. Attack. Threats from a gang of computer hackers calling themselves Anonymous.
I've had 7 different passwords, and they've got them all so far.
Anonymous hacked his site and plastered it with gay sex pictures. His girlfriend left him.
She thought that I was cheating on her with guys.
As long as I can think back, Anonymous have done some pretty off-color things in the name of getting cheap laughs, But, I mean, that's part of the culture.
They get what they call lulz.
Lulz is a corruption of LOL, which stands for laugh out loud. Anonymous gets big lulz from pulling random pranks. For example, messing with online children's games like Habbo Hotel.
Habbo Hotel was this online community where you had an avatar and you walked around and talked to other people. It was kind of like an early version of, World of Warcraft or Second Life or any of those virtual worlds. What the people on B did was invade Habbo Hotel, created, thousands of avatars. They all had this one uniform of a black guy with a big afro wearing a black suit. And so there would be thousands of these people, black guys, black suit, huge afro, walking around this world, and they would do things like form a swastika out of themselves. And I think that was a real landmark because it was when they were able to see that, they can use their numbers to do something really interesting and really disruptive.
So we blocked the entrance to their pool, and that just pissed them off so fucking much. It was fucking beautiful. That was fucking just wonderful. Wonderful times. Those kids love that pool. They love the shit out of their pool.
The goal was actually to offend everyone, simply because the idea that we could offend you by drawing a little shape on the screen was stupid to the people involved in it. They were like, really? You're going to get that mad over us just drawing this on the screen? Wow, well, you need to refocus a little on life, because this should not be upsetting you that much.
Barrett Brown. I'm the director of Project PM and former operative with Anonymous. We were targeting furries, which were a subculture of people, of course, who, a lot of people on 4chan find irritating by virtue of their being irritating. A furry is someone, generally a male in his 20s, who identifies with animals and oftentimes has sexual attraction to other people dressed as animals. We had furry infiltrators, people trying, we had secret groups. Mine was called the Illuminati /I/Illuminati, and we were, our goal was to wreak as much havoc as possible because it was stupid. There's a point, when I was, otherwise, seemingly respectable writer, 2007. My first book had come out like that, but I spent my evenings on Second Life, that big, virtual world, riding around in a virtual spaceship with the words faggery daggery do written on it, wearing afros and dropping virtual bombs on little villages at concerts and waving giant penises around. And that was the most fun time I've ever had in my life.
All these different organizations online, whether it's 4chan or just any website, there's typically a community aspect to it. This is where people have their social relationships. This is where their friends are. This is where they have a creative outlet. And so all those aspects are going into groups like Anonymous, where people feel like they're part of a bigger thing and they're able to express themselves within that group.
There were certain words, certain phrases, certain ways people respond to things, certain images that were posted that created a pattern, and that pattern was, I guess, the origin of what is now Anonymous.
It's like Freemasons with a sense of humor, in so much as they have this common symbology, and one of their chief joys, which is kind of wrapped up in power and secrecy, was the fact that they could recognize each other by referencing these symbols, referencing these phrases. Over 9,000. It's over 9,000! I lost my iPod. Mudkips, anything involving mudkips. So you have this weird sort of international culture developing with people, across the world, wherever they may be.
In late 06 and, into early 07, there's a bit of a sea change where instead of just posting a bunch of content or randomly saying we're going to go over to some website and post a bunch of dirty comments against someone, it becomes a little more organized.
Welcome to the Hal Turner Show.
They went after a guy named Hal Turner.
I am being discriminated against because I'm white.
Hal Turner was a neo-Nazi who was, big online and had a podcast.
I think that the 14th Amendment was not ratified properly, and I think, therefore, it is still okay to have Negroes as slaves in America.
The first time I heard about Hal Turner is he was knocking somebody on 4chan. He was just being a major dick to a relatively known user. And for the fun of it, we started trolling him. And then I guess we kind of figured we had a moral high ground, which allowed us to get people on our side. But he was a fucking neo-Nazi. That's not okay to be in modern society. You're not allowed to do that. And there's a million neo-Nazis out there. But he started picking on our dudes, so we had to go to our dude's fucking defense and It just so happened that he was a neo-Nazi, so that's a big reason that he's a fucking dickface.
I'm like, yeah, screw that racist son of a bitch. Let's do this, you know? So I joined in, and I made some of the phone calls, and, you know, I played around on the chat thing on his website and posted in the threads and whatnot.
Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hola, this is Pedro.
Spick, don't call my radio show anymore, you filthy spick animal.
The college that I
you're
go
on the Hal
to
Turner show.
has begun an integration program where they try and purposely lower standards to bring more blacks and quote unquote diversify the campus. And by the end of the next 5 years, they intend to bring over 9,000.
He was just a horribly racist radio personality who seemed to handle it well when you called in. Like, he could handle being berated by Anonymous. And that made it very interesting. It made it a bit of a challenge. It wasn't some guy who just either crumbled or stopped answering the phone. It was a guy who would yell back.
I don't see where you're going with this.
Where I'm going is, I believe Barack Obama is genetically incapable of exercising the power necessary to govern the most complicated nation on earth. That's where I'm going with this. And I think part of the reason he's incapable of doing it is because of racial genetic inferiority. Is that clear enough for you?
No, you changed the subject again.
Wait a second, you asked
Hal Turner wasn't the first, actual person that, Anonymous had caused trouble for, but the circumstances ended up being significant. They DDoS'd his website, stuff like that, costing him thousands of dollars, bandwidth fees.
We DDoSed him, which is overflowing his server with packets and fake information. And then we kind of trolled him in real life. We sent countless pizzas to his house. We signed him up for escorts on Craigslist. We sent a bunch of pallets of industrial materials to his house, which he ultimately had to foot the bill for. And basically we destroyed his ability to pay for his radio show, and that took him off the internet.
And then they ended up getting some real hackers to help them out. Like, this wasn't sort of pranks. They actually were able to get into Hal Turner's private servers and his mail servers and find some interesting emails that he was serving as an FBI informant, which, if you're a right-wing neo-Nazi, is not a good thing to be.
And obviously him being an FBI informant, and also his reaction, his sort of douchebaggy reaction to the raids, damaged his credibility within the white nationalist scene, which is a shame.
Hal Turner's gone. He's been prosecuted by the feds for threatening judges.
It wasn't supposed to be different, but it ended up being different. People who observe Anonymous see this group called Anonymous going after this white nationalist and say, oh, hey, look, Anonymous must be some kind of activist organization. So by virtue of those people joining Anonymous becomes more of an activist organization. What follows is a period of confusion and anger in which, the original Anonymous people, the sort who want to keep Anonymous as this nihilist little, ridiculous group, are upset that now, that the most terrible thing on the internet is now becoming a force for good all of a sudden.
Anonymous has never been about getting media attention or getting all of this attention towards it. It means a community, a pretty sometimes insular community that just kind of kept to itself, made jokes and made content. But that was, of course, changed completely, just turned completely on its head when Chinology started.
Anonymous began to become less of just a culture, people who wanted to perform pranks, and more of the internet's first army.
I'm Mike Vitale, and my handle is Seth Dude. Now, this is January 2008. Anonymous is strong now. We're not a little dinky fucking group anymore. This is millions of people worldwide, and we're watching. And then Scientology stepped in with a big target on its chest.
A video came out of Tom Cruise. It was supposed to be an internal Scientology video, talking about secrets of Scientology.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you have to do something about it because you're the only one that can really help.
It talks about you're the only one who can stop, bad things from happening. And so this is kind of widely mocked online.
It circulated like wildfire.
There's nothing part away from me. It's just...
Because people found it humorous and goofy. And the Church of Scientology went into their legal mode, and they threatened websites with lawsuits if they didn't pull down the video.
instantly the Scientologists post a DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And this is a way that if you own content, you can go to video sites, upload sites, and have your content pulled when someone uploads it illegally.
So Scientology's always at odds with the internet, always trying to legally bully people out of fucking them over on the internet. They always did that. And then here they are trying again, but you know what? Anonymous saw that and they said, oh, you guys just fucked around badly. Like, you're trying to censor our internet. You know, like, are you trying to take a joke away from Anonymous? Like, you don't do that.
What these people did, in this case, these Greg Hausch and these other people, was they decided, you know, we can probably harness Anonymous in this case and target Scientology.
A few Anons, a few people on 4chan posted, hey, we should grab that video and post it on a few other sites. And I was one of the people in that thread talking about it. And we got the original source of the video by reaching out to the person behind the accounts and everything. We start posting it. The surprising thing was how fast they were DMCAing them on every site. It looked to us like they must have direct contact with the lawyers and the team who actually pulls videos at all of these sites. Like, it was minutes and these things were falling down. We're like, holy crap, that's messed up.
What followed was it's this term called the Barbra Streisand effect. And this video, as they're attempting to suppress it, went everywhere. Like, everywhere you look on the internet, you were gonna stumble upon this video.
Actually, Gawker, the site that I worked for, was, I think, the first one to put it on the website, and we got in a huge legal battle with Scientology, who wanted us to take it down.
A guy joins the channel, and he says, you should all look at Gawker. So we go over to Gawker, and the strangest thing has happened. This big media company had the video up on their front page and basically had a comment underneath of it that stated very clearly that they were sick of this abuse that was going on. That made us think, what have we gotten ourselves mixed up in here?
Scientology is an interesting target because in some ways it's the perfect inversion of what geeks and hackers value. At so many different levels: science fiction, intellectual property, discourses of freedom, science and technology. It's very proprietary, it's closed. And so in some ways, if you had something like a cultural inversion machine and you stuck geeks and hackers in there, you'd get something that looks a lot like Scientology. So it's quite offensive, and there's a real pleasure in attacking your perfect nemesis.
What really kind of dared us and set us off about Scientology is specifically the treatment of their critics. Anybody who says anything bad about Scientology is automatically some sort of criminal, some sort of crazy person, a drug addict. It's just that kind of mentality, that kind of, like, if anybody says anything bad about you, we're gonna fuck you over in the worst possible way. It resonated like this feeling of disgust within us. That was the big problem. That was the big problem. The censorship aspect of it. The audacity of this cult, this creepy cult, to go into our territory and tell us that we can't post this? No, fuck them. No, it's not gonna happen.
And people who knew what Anonymous was to begin with were like, oh my god, Anonymous is gonna go to war with Scientology. This should be really interesting. Especially because it's two weird-ass groups. I mean, I've been an Anon for a long fucking time. I know Anonymous is really strange. They're weird, and the stuff we like is weird, and it's really not mainstream at all. Now you have Scientology. Also really weird. A lot of crazy shit goes down. Anybody on the outside who's seeing this is going, let's watch these two retards fight. Like, both their pants are gonna fall down, they're gonna triple, and it's gonna hurt everybody, and it's gonna be hysterical. And what happened was all these people who were geared up, the infrastructure was built to war with other Anons, said, you know what, fuck it. Everybody's gonna get together and pound the fuck out of Scientology.
And then that's when 4chan kind of reared into action, really reared into action. And they started to troll the Church of Scientology. And this took the form of pranking the Dianetics hotline, ordering pizzas.
Every fax number we get, and we're sharing them all. You know, every number we get, we send black pieces of paper on a loop until we solve their ink. I go to call them on the phone, and it's busy. You know, and that's their main fucking Dianetics hotline. Their Dianetics 800 number, you can't get through because Anons have completely fucking clogged it. and just probably saying stupid shit. The whole idea was just you call them just to keep them on the phone. What's an Ilron? How do I Dianetics my face? They were not expecting that, and they couldn't handle it.
I'm Brian Mettenbrink. I always liked anything technical, mechanical, anything sciencey, really. Computers do what you tell them to. They don't all of a sudden start doing weird stuff, and if they do, it's probably your fault. And I always like that, you know, they're perfect, really, in a way. I'd just gone to 4chan just on pure happenstance, and I saw a post about the Scientology thing, and I started looking up stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is actually for a decent cause. I think I'll, you know, do this.
Anonymous members have developed a distributed denial of service attack tool called Low Orbit Ion Cannon, which is a name taken from a computer game.
Low Orbit Ion Cannon is what's called an endgame weapon in Red Alert. All you had to do was literally follow instructions step by step. I downloaded a program that's free and legal for anyone to download and use. And I followed the instructions, and I typed in www.scientology.org, and I pushed go. And what it does is it tells Scientology.org, in this case, it tells them to send their website to my computer about, I think it was 800,000 times in a weekend. And I'm pretty sure I probably took it down myself a couple of times.
This tool is Low Orbit Ion Cannon, sometimes referred to as LOIC. I am actually not breaking any laws by using this tool against my own computer, 127.0.0.1, which is a non-routable address. But, of course, if I were to have attacked one of those other bigger sites out there, I would have severely been breaking the law and would have been doing it in a way that was quite easy to track. You do it, you put in the site, you see that the IP is correct, you make sure that all these settings are good, and you hit the button. And off it goes.
It felt like you were making a difference. You know, just you yourself. And you didn't even have to leave your home, you know? You just sat at your computer and followed instructions and stood up for what you believe in, so to speak. You made your say in the world, and hopefully it turns out better for it.
And one of the guys said, we need to make a video. We have to make a video.
Hello, leaders of Scientology. We are anonymous.
When the video came out on January 21st, that was one of the first times that Anonymous as a culture started referring to itself as Anonymous as a movement and declared that it was going to take down and destroy the Church of Scientology. That video probably changed everything.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
It basically looked like if a computer was going to tell you that he was going to beat the shit out of you, this is what it would look like.
That one video really galvanized that moment of innovation. That's exactly like with that video, internet activism, as it's known today, was born.
What the video was saying was, it's over. You're not going to be able to follow people back to their house anymore with impunity. You're not going to be able to just issue a cease and desist letter to any reporter who wants to write some shit about you that you don't like. You know, that's done with. Every time you do that, Anonymous is going to hit you harder.
So we made a video named Call to Arms that said, we're going to the streets. Every major city of the world has a Scientology building.
Be very wary of the 10th of February. Anonymous invites you to join us in an act of solidarity. Anonymous invites you to take up the banner of free speech, of human rights, of family and freedom. Join us in protest outside of Scientology centers worldwide.
And you just see this consensus forming that it's going to happen. So we made the third video, the Code of Conduct. Don't bring weapons. Dress accordingly. Cover your faces, because they will try and find out who you are and screw with your life.
Rule number 17. Cover your face. This will prevent your identification from videos taken by hostiles.
Scientology has a history of harassing, stalking, and just generally doing horrible things to its critics. So people needed a way to hide their identities. A lot of people had very legitimate fears. They don't want to be followed home. They don't want to be stalked. They don't want to put their families and themselves in danger.
Everyone was going, well, we're going to wear a mask. What's the only fucking mask that we all already know or have a joke about? And it's the Guy Fawkes mask. You see the movie V for Vendetta, you know, the ending scene where everyone's wearing the Guy Fawkes mask. That is very reminiscent of what Anonymous thinks Anonymous is. We wanted to represent anonymity in some way when it moved into real life. I think that the Guy Fawkes mask was one of the most natural things to happen. It is the idea that none of us are as cruel as all of us. You have this massive crowd of people who are anonymous that is going to fight against a bigger thing and win.
Even after watching the video, it's like, yeah, this is great, but who's actually gonna do it? Who's gonna step up? Are people actually gonna get out of their house? And I guess we were really affected by the stereotype of that whole community, there being internet nerds, that too afraid to leave their mom's basements. I figured maybe 15 nerds from every city somewhere might show up and wear their masks at a building for a while and leave.
No one thought that they were gonna come out.
This is me on the way there. I haven't slept. I'm very fucking tired.
And I remember going to the park that day, and it's really fucking early in the morning, which I thought was a bad idea. And I'm smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking around like, where the fuck is everybody? There's nobody here.
So here I am, sitting in Bryant Park, waiting for the other announcers to show up.
I remember thinking like, oh fuck, like, am I gonna be the only one in the park? Am I gonna walk to Scientology with fucking 6 or 7 people? Which totally defeats the entire purpose of this, because now they could single me out, you know? Then I get up and I start walking around and I see there's a lot of green balloons over there for some reason. On the other side of the park, there was like fucking 200 people. There was Guy Fawkes masks everywhere. And I'm like, holy shit, this is huge.
There's a fucking lot of us. That's pretty good. I had no idea how many Anons there were until we started moving.
And it just fucking got bigger. I remember walking through Times Square, and everybody in Times Square was an Anon. Like, and you know, this is like a fucking 1,000 person per like fucking minute foot traffic area. And everywhere I'm looking, I'm seeing fucking Anon symbols. It was fucking wild. It was really wild.
This is our fucking race. Hell yeah!
So we start getting numbers in. And Sydney, we're thinking that it's going to be 50 people. And before 10 a.m., before even time, there's already 50 people there. And there's still streams of people walking down the streets. A couple hours into it, you know, because I didn't go to bed until 1 in the morning, you know, you're looking at Sydney as, wow, there's 250 people in Sydney. The cops are estimating higher than that for their reports. What just happened? Adelaide, Perth, and Melbourne happened. And, you know, over 200 at each of them. We nearly broke 1,000 leaving Australia. Now, the next protest was Tel Aviv, which had actually gotten its first Scientology building right before this. There were Palestinians and Israelis at this protest, both holding their flags, and at one point they actually switched flags and held up each other's flags and whatnot. It was awesome to see. I call our guy in London, Britanon, and I say, hey, what's going on there? And he's like, did you just get out of bed? I said, yeah, I haven't even turned on the computer. I just figured I'd call you. And he said, we've got 600 people, and the cops are really, really mad at me.
All the major cities were having hundreds of people come out. It's massive. Clearwater had like 300 people. I don't think anyone beat out LA. I think LA had over 1,000 people.
The thing that happened was something completely different, and hundreds of people from every city just swarmed the streets. It was kind of overwhelming, a little even scary, but scary in a good way.
Soon, you know, we're at around the 10,000 mark, you know, and we were joking the whole time, over 9,000, you know, one of those memes. It was too surreal. It was not believable.
You go by what name? We are anonymous.
It was very empowering, especially after people saw the thousands of people showing up. This was it. We owned the world at that point.
You've got lolcats, and you've got rickrolling. You've got all these other things that Anonymous has been involved in. Then, you know, take us a month later, and, you know, 10,000 people were just in the streets. And in every major country in the world, in every major city in the world. And what the hell just happened? What changed? You know, who flipped the switch? The world looked very different to me at that point.
We all met each other. The idea of an Anon is you're fucking alone until you get to 4chan, you know, and then these people all think like you know? And all of a sudden, you're not alone. You are with fucking 500 others, you know, they all know the same jokes as you. They all clearly have similar interests as you. Here's your culture. You meet your own people finally.
Immediately, you felt like you were at home. If you were an Anon, you were at home. We all like spent years in the same place, looking at the same pictures, laughing at the same jokes. You know, we pretty much were already friends, even though we've never ever met. It was very happy.
It's perhaps a little surprising. It's not just preteens or teenagers. There's a far more even mix of males and females than you would imagine otherwise.
Everyone always figured Anonymous was a very male, you know, thing, but it wasn't like that at all, There's some fucking hot girls come through, like, there's some, like, really, like, you'd be surprised.
And, you know, there were a lot of, you know, these so-called, you know, guys who weren't socially good. They were very awkward. They still lived at home at 23, half of them virgins. And I'll tell you, the amount of those people who got laid from these protests happening is in the thousands that would not have, for years probably.
That's why those protests were so important. It was a chance to finally meet other people that were previously anonymous and unknown, and hence it was the moment of the end of their anonymity.
Scientology, they kind of fought back, so to speak. They posted stuff online.
While claiming they are peaceful, in less than 3 weeks, anonymous members made or encouraged 8,139 harassing or threatening phone calls, 3.6 million malicious emails, 141 million hits against church websites, 10 acts of vandalism, 22 bomb threats, and 8 death threats against members and officials of the Church of Scientology.
They wanted to find me. They did. They hired PIs.
They started taking pictures of us, threatening to sue us.
People were getting followed. People were getting followed home. It'd be a regular thing for someone to say, oh, I had to lose someone on the subway. I saw someone from the Scientology Center and they were following me.
They would follow us to our houses, try to intimidate us, send us cease and desist letters. These tactics that they used to fight the activism they faced before the internet were completely ineffective against Chanology.
You know, most of the people who received them actually framed them and put them on their wall. I've seen multiple of them framed and put on the wall. Mine's sitting in my closet somewhere in a box.
I did the whole low orbit ion cannon stuff, and then I pretty much just went about my life after that for probably, I think it's 6 months, and then the FBI showed up here at my parents' house where I wasn't, looking for me.
2 men got out of the car and took their jackets off and laid their guns on the front seat and came up to ask us if Brian was home and explained that they were the FBI and they were looking for Brian, and I've never been so scared.
And then my parents directed them to where I was living, and they showed up and said, I'd like to have a friendly conversation with you, and I had the worst friendly conversation of my life. And we sat down at my dining room table, and they just started asking me questions, and I'm trying to figure out what they're here for, because I have no idea. And they eventually started asking me questions about Anonymous.
I was scared to death. I mean, my son is looking at 5 years in jail and a $100,000 fine.
You know, I had no idea that it was any sort of this big of a crime to do what I did. I thought it was the kind of slap on a wrist, $200 fine type crime. So I actually told them that I did it at that point. Then it went from there. But yeah.
As he explained it to me at the time, it was like pushing the refresh button over and over and over and over 800,000 times. And it seems like such a little thing.
I did the second most damage is what Scientology said. I sent the second most out of everybody. So I got the maximum for my category, which was 1 year in prison and 1 year supervised release. I think, the way I feel is for what I did was one of the most, lopsided punishments I've ever, read about or heard of. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous, especially the year supervised release where I can't touch a computer for a year. I'm not sure what that's supposed to solve except make my life difficult. So that computer behind me back there, I could go back to prison if I went over and touched it. So I can't knowingly associate with members of Anonymous. They just made a big deal about Scientology as a religion and that this is America and you can believe in whatever you want to believe. And I'm pretty sure they actually compared me to the KKK and the Nazis and stuff in the courtroom.
Yeah, it's a completely different issue. I'm very proud of what he did. He stood up for what he believed in, but that was never, ever mentioned.
I never would even dream of hurting anybody. It's just not me.
Prior to Anonymous, critics of the church still had to be very, very careful because of the aggressive lawsuits that were launched against academics, journalists, and other critics. I would say that era is over. And Anonymous, more than any other sort of intervention, is probably responsible for that change.
This actually caused a decent rift in Anonymous.
There was one big group, significant group of people who would say, this Chinology stuff, it's cancer, it's awful, it's bad, it's just bringing attention to us that we don't want.
The trolling isn't happening, we're not getting our jollies. Now this is all really serious and moral and somber. And that's not what I signed up for, that kind of thing. And then there are the people who were on the other side who are going, well, I only signed up for the serious and somber. You guys, go away. This is, and there became this very fierce clash of ideologies, and it was alien to us.
They decided, in their own words, which I was privy to because it was told to me, stop ruining our bad name. So to make Anonymous look bad, they go off and they post animated GIFs, animated images to epilepsy forums that are black and white just strobing really quickly. So any of the epilepsy people on these support forums see it and they fall off their chairs, in seizure. When you start hearing this term moral fag. If you're not out there making epileptics have seizures, then you're doing it wrong. So you're a moral fag.
Which is what I am, a moral fag. Those who want to use Anonymous as, as a tool for good in some sense. Rather than just doing what we used to do, which is distribute video games.
One Anon said it well once. There is no leader. Their ops have momentary leaders, de facto leaders.
Almost through meritocracy, there's more respected or more persistent participants. Some people participate in a single operation and are never heard from again. It might even be a housewife who just, agrees with that political statement or that protest.
I like to describe this with a picture of a bird swarm. Everybody's flying very, very quiet. Suddenly one bird flies into the other direction and the mass fly into the same direction following that person. It's totally okay to say, I'm sorry, I don't take part. When Chinology was running full force, it was like a kid stretching for the first time and actually seeing the real power.
If you had asked me all throughout 2008 and most of 2009, is the politics of Anonymous always going to be sutured and hinged to the Church of Scientology? I would have said yes. And it became unsutured, unhinged, when a different political wing was born in 2010.
It is our task to find secret, abusive plans and expose them where they can be opposed before they're implemented.
The interesting thing about someone like Assange is that he actually also sprang from, a hacker culture. It's a mentality of spreading information.
Julian was Mendax. He was the greatest hacker that ever walked the face of the earth when I was a kid. I mean, they rumored he could move satellites around in space by hacking into NASA. Maybe it never happened, but I mean, it was a myth that kept young kids like me wanting to plug a computer into a modem and see if I can move some satellites around.
WikiLeaks is an instantiation of the hacker ethos. Truth wants to be free, and we want to liberate it.
WikiLeaks released a huge trove of diplomatic cables. There was a lot of controversy from every quarter of society.
The WikiLeaks website released nearly 400,000 secret U.S. files on the Iraq war late today. It was the largest leak of classified U.S. files in history.
The diplomatic cables show the U.S. is spying on its allies.
Lots of things which were understood in private and may have been not even talked about explicitly. Suddenly they're out there in the cold light of day, and it's going to make some governments and some individuals very uncomfortable.
He was showing the world a glimpse of how, the powerful elite actually work. At least to some extent. I mean, these are fairly low-level diplomats sending messages back and forth, but it's a side of government you hardly ever see, and it's pretty eye-opening. And once it's out, it's out. I think information wants to be free, but let's look at it. Let's analyze it.
It's important that we know such stuff. It's important that we know what our governments do, and if they don't tell us, then somebody has to.
There was one particular moment that really sparked the fire, and this was when PayPal, MasterCard, and Amazon pulled services for WikiLeaks.
So all of a sudden, there's no way to actually process donations to WikiLeaks. And then people went and found neo-Nazi groups. Visa and MasterCard were perfectly fine with you being able to PayPal being able to make donations to them. But WikiLeaks, no.
I think WikiLeaks is doing a good thing. It's just a total hypocrisy. They got their little fucking banking mafia to fuck, WikiLeaks over.
People were incredibly angry. There was a real sense of rage. I think there was a sense that WikiLeaks was exposing the lies that the government had told to the people, and that the government was desperately trying to make sure that those lies weren't exposed. And there was just an intense, I can only call it fury.
Anonymous very quickly moves into an attack mode.
Anonymous DOSed PayPal. They were pissed.
Cyber protests, sit-ins, however you want to look at it. DDoS is a tool that is a big giant, it's like driving a finish nail in with a sledgehammer.
The numbers of participants were massive, massive. And they managed over the course of a couple of days to disable the websites of MasterCard and PayPal.
It was like watching the hack magician finally get a trick right, because you're not expecting it, and then it's magnificent. It was beautiful. Because what you had is people finally stood up for something. How long has it been since we had a huge, really relevant protest? I'm not talking Tea Party, I want to bring my guns in public. I'm talking 10,000 angry people said this is not right, and I want to do something about it.
Although it was awesome and it was one part we were fighting for me it was quite clear that it's not the end of the story. That it's not suddenly changing into rainbows and 9 cats or whatever, but that we now have to watch even more.
George Hotz made it possible for PlayStation to run homebrew software, which also lets you run pirated software.
Yo, it's GeoHot! And for those that don't know, I'm getting sued by Sony.
So Sony went after him, claiming it was a DMCA violation.
They just kind of nasty-grammed him and shut him down and did sue him. He settled. And the response to that was immediate and brutal.
Sony has confirmed that hackers broke into its PlayStation network, exposing the personal information of up to 77 million users worldwide.
Over the next 6 to 8 months, they were hacked over 20 times. There's no evidence that Anonymous was anywhere near the majority of the hacks. One of the reasons why it captured so much of the media imagination when Anonymous did it, as opposed to when other people did it, is because they were loud and bombastic, and they had a great image you could throw on the top of your article, and they made statements that when you're constructing a story, you just can't resist.
And then, kind of seemingly out of the blue, there was something by the name LulzSec that sailed into the seas.
Well, LulzSec, it's sort of a group, mostly from Anonymous, who, large part, were the same people who hacked H.B. Gary. And they decided to form this little group and just carry on operations sort of outside the purview of Anonymous for a while.
They hacked whatever they wanted, they released whatever they wanted. It's almost like they had no rules. They just said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stir up the cart. We're going to make some trouble. We're going to make some waves. And they did.
LulzSec tried to say it wasn't Anonymous for a while. They tried to divide itself off. I don't think anyone bought it for a minute. There was no way that LulzSec was not Anonymous. But the majority of time, the majority of Anons are not doing anything particularly illegal. When they are, a huge number of them try to do that in a very specific political context. For those people, what LulzSec was doing, they were funny, but they were attacking random targets. They were breaking the quasi-rules by attacking media.
Collateral damage such as the release of docs and people's personal information who are just caught in the crossfire, really, of an anonymous confrontation is something that a lot of Anons don't really support.
There was a lot of infighting about it because their way, wasn't really our way. We will not attack the media.
Show me what democracy looks like! We got sold out!
I don't think this whole issue is a technical hacking thing. This is more about human philosophy and psychology. What's motivating us? Why is there so much unrest or disenfranchisement or anger that would lead people to want to take matters in their own hands and join these? Whether you think it's bad or not is irrelevant. It's not going away.
I have stood upon the mountaintop known as Anonymous and looked down on a world inflamed with revolution. What can you say? Your spine tingles when you're at the cusp of history. When you're surfing, the waves of history, your spine tingles.
There's a lot of people in Anonymous who feel very deeply and very sincerely about their contribution towards democracy around the world. And I think that's one of the main things that I'm most proud of about Anonymous. There are things that I'm not proud of about Anonymous, but that we stand against censorship and we stand against oppressive governments, even our own. It's a very noble thing. I still burn a candle for those people who got shot in San Francisco and didn't get justice. I'm proud of Anonymous for their actions related to Occupy Wall Street. I'm happy that Anonymous has helped with collecting information, spreading information, getting information out, and mobilizing the appetite for direct action on the street.
Dissent has a face now. It has an aesthetic. There's this package it can pick up and put on anywhere in the world for any cause it wants. And sometimes that's going to be terrible, and sometimes it's going to be wonderful. One thing I can kind of promise is that it's going to be interesting. It's rare in history that new things happen, but I think this is one of them.
If you have power in real life and you have money in real life, it doesn't fucking matter on the internet. What matters on the internet is your actual ideas, how smart you are, the quality of you. And when certain organizations that, they want to extend their real life power onto the internet, it's not gonna fucking take because of Anonymous.
And history teaches us that change simply doesn't come with flowers. It doesn't work. If they say I'm a criminal, damn, well, then I will be one.
Anonymous is an evolving thing. It's like a phoenix. It might occasionally catch fire and burn to the ground, but it'll be reborn from ashes. It'll be reborn stronger.
I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, or if you like Ron Paul, or if you worship pigeons or Scientology, or if you're Catholic or atheist or Methodist. I don't care about that. Your opinion matters. I don't care if I disagree with it. I don't care if I hate your guts. Your opinion matters.
Die! Die! Why won't you die? Why won't you die?
Beneath this mask, there is more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, Mr. Creedy. And ideas are bulletproof.
For God's sake, don't touch it.
Dad, what's wrong with the telly?
Good evening, London. Allow me first to apologize for this.
The emergency channel.
I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition. Bloody hell. I enjoy them as much as any bloke. But in the spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that is sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak.
Let me think, just let me think.
I suspect even now, orders are being shouted into telephones, and men with guns will soon be on their way.
It's Chancellor Sattler.
Damn it! Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
You designed it, sir. You wanted it foolproof. You told me every television in London.
Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and depression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and soliciting your submission.
We need cameras.
How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic you turned to the now High Chancellor Adam Sutler. He promised you order, he promised you peace, and all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent.
Inspector, you're almost through.
Last night I sought to end that silence. Last night I destroyed the Old Bailey to remind this country of what it has forgotten. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing, if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then I would suggest that you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me 1 year from tonight, outside the gates of Parliament, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgotten.
Keep taking pictures, dude. That's all. Digital. That's awesome. Come in.
If you walk past this guy and you don't give him no money, right? If you walk past this guy and you don't give him no money, then anonymous means nothing to you.
This man is anonymous.
Yes. Big dude, you've got money to come here.
If anyone has any money, please give it to this homeless man.
Everybody, don't walk past this guy.
We just like them at the top.
Get the money.
The selfish, cold-blooded criminals that have been leading everybody subliminally. So this anonymous, we are today.
Don't walk past this guy without no money.
Who just took the red? Someone took the Red Bull gun. I think we're police provocators. That's
Don't walk past this guy.
Who's got change for a fiver? Man wants to give some money.
Give him some money.
Anyone got change?
Change, come on.
How many times have we walked past? Anyone got change?
We walk past these people all the fucking time. That's to stop.
It's a criminal offence to give money to people on the street. But we don't mind because that's a silly law.
Call it a donation.
People want to know.
People want to know
who we are.
One more for the dreamers.
Thank you. You've even got two on your side now, my friend.
Put that money in your pocket so no one.
Yeah, hide it away so no one can get it, mate.
Even the police are giving money because the police are
Be a smile. Be a smile, mate. Woo! Look after you, mate, we will.
Children and grandchildren, and they don't want to up in this fascist police state.
And mortgages to pay.
You're the best.
Good man. This woman suggested giving the food bank money to this man. We love you, man. This is what I'm talking about. This is compassion, generosity. This is the key out into the paradise world we want to be co-creating.
Because I'm going to have fun hugs today. Can you just lift your sign? Oh. Yeah. Alright. Oh, give me a hug.
In your pocket, mate. In my pocket. Put that somewhere safe, mate. So don't get it.
We're ready to proceed.
Your favourite.
It's going to be all over the internet.
This is going to go across the world.
It is. He's crying. He's crying. Don't cry. Don't cry. What happens when you feel the love? You don't have to thank anybody.
The only people who care are the ones without faith.
We are anonymous and we're
the only ones who care are the ones who are not going to get. We're not going to be known for this. We'll go away from this today and no one will